Well, finally, here we have it. We have the Bixler has been completely rebuilt. All the wiring, connections, repairs, hot glue, everything's been done, finally. And now's the time I can give you a little bit of a tour around to show you what improvements have been made and changes basically that have happened. Let's go in and have a bit of a closer look at what has changed for the old Bixler number 2. Okay, here we are right up the front. Of course, I do need to fill in this hole, but that was the size of the old FPV camera that was in there. That's the size of the Fat Shark HD pilot camera. So we now have a Runcam Nano camera. It's tiny, it's only just a tiny little thing. So we've got that hot glued on there. I've put 2 screws in there and then hot glued up and over the screws just to make sure it's really strong. It isn't going anywhere. That's fantastic. Moving up, I've glued this little bonnet section back in. I don't need it anymore. I used to have the Hobbyking, the Turnigy T1000 underneath there so I could access the buttons on it, but now I don't need that because the flight controller is no longer in there. Let's continue on up here to the hatch. And inside the hatch, let's have a look. Here's all the cabling for the Matek. But look what we've got inside here. This is a, would you believe it? Here we are. A 5,000 milliamp 3S battery. Now you would never think that a 5,000 would fit in there, but it does. So there you go. I've got a 5,000 in this Bixler. Long flight times coming our way. You beauty. And now with the battery out, take a look at the space. All space in there. And then the nose is completely free. So anyway, heaps of space now in there for great big batteries. Matek sitting up here proudly on top. Got good access to the USB, and I've also got access here to the SD card area. Everything's wired in, and I've hot glued some of the connections just so they don't get vibrations and snap. Continuing along, we've got the wiring over to the ESC, of course, which provides power for the prop. Now, out here on the wing, look at my sad-looking FPV antenna. That's just terrible. I'm going to have to buy a new one. But anyway, that's all I've got at the moment. Put a little mount in there for it because here we have the wiring underneath. You have the wiring underneath the wing. There is the VTX, the video transmitter. I put this little antenna on just in case I accidentally turned it on and fried it without an antenna. So that one's on at the moment, but this is the one on top. That'll eventually, we'll take that one off and connect this one in. And we've got the connection running all the way down into here, which goes into the side of the plane, which I can easily disconnect just like that if I need to take the wings off. And connect it back up. And we still do have the holes for the bolts that go up there to hold the wing together. And the same thing over here on this side. We've got the same sort of connection that goes into here. And it runs all the way down the wing to my receiver. Now, this receiver has the 2 diversity antennas popping up through the wing. And if we flip it over again, here we have the diversity antennas. So we arranged them in this V configuration, just so that if the plane is like banking on one way, this aerial is going to be more sort of vertical. And if the plane banks back the other way, then that aerial is going to be more vertical, so that you get good reception, even if you're turning the airplane. Okay, and that's pretty much about it. That you can really see, we've just got the old propeller on there, and the GPS is down here inside the tail, hidden away. It gets the signal, no worries at all, straight through the phone. But have a look how far away everything is. We've got the FPV transmitter. I mean, now this thing is shouting out back to the goggles, and then all the way over this side we've got the receiver trying to listen to the controls from me. So to separate these two as far as possible helps the plane to obviously get a lot better range when you're flying, and that's what we need with a fixed wing like this, FPV fixed wing. Okay, so the question that now remains is, will the Bixler balance on its CG point? Balancing on the CG point is extremely important, and let me just give you a brief reason why it's so important. So here underneath the wings, I have placed, see that little dowel inside there? It's got a little tiny indentation underneath it. That is the CG, or the center of gravity for this Bixler. There's the other one, a bit easier to see there. Now those two little dowel points will connect in onto this little contraption here. So this is what the plane will sort of sit on, so I can check the balance. Now the reason why the balance is so important, because this wing is creating all the lift for the plane, and if the lift is here, right? So the lift point is about here. Where's those dowels? Yeah, it's about sort of here in the center of the wing. Now, if your plane is too tail heavy, in other words, it's heavier back there, when this wing creates lift, what's the plane going to do? It's going to tilt up. And what's that going to do? It's going to stop the plane. It's going to stall the plane. It's going to be very hard to fly if the plane always wants to stop, because you know that an aeroplane needs to move forward to get lift. So, but if we change the balance point so that when the wing creates lift at this point, the airplane noses down slightly, that means the airplane's still going to be able to go down through the sky. Let me put the battery in and I'll show you. Now let's have a look what happens now when we lift the plane on its balance point, which is just here. If I lift it here, what's going to happen? Oh, there it goes. It's starting to tilt down, you see. So now when the plane creates lift, the plane, if it loses momentum, will actually pitch down and then regain the momentum as it falls forward through the air, which, you know, basically it gets its momentum back and then you can continue to fly. But if when the wing is lifting and the plane keeps wanting to be too tail heavy and it's pitching up all the time, the plane wants to stop. But if it gets lift and it pushes the nose of the plane down, it's going to get more momentum and it's obviously going to continue to fly. Anyway, let's put it on the balance checker and see how it will balance now. Okay, so now the Bixler is resting on its balance point under the wing there. You can see it's in that one. And of course the same over on this side. And can you look at the way that aeroplane is now angled when it's on its balance point? See how it's leaning forward like that? That's good. I mean, it probably is leaning a little bit too far forward. You'd probably prefer if it was sitting a little bit more sort of like this. maybe that would be a little bit better. So I can put a tiny bit of weight on the tail just to get this plane not as down, pointing down like that. But look, that's still safe to fly even though it's pointing down like that. Okay, so I've just adjusted the battery slightly backwards, and it's the balance point, it's leveled it out a little bit, which is much better. However, I still think I might put a little bit of weight on the tail just to bring that nose up slightly, maybe somewhere about there. But it won't take much weight at all to get this plane to just have a little bit of nose down attitude. Yeah, it's going to be great. Well, thanks so much again for tuning in to the Bixler rebuild videos. I hope that has been informative to you. Maybe you've picked up a few tips along the way as maybe you are going to rebuild a fixed wing FPV aeroplane. Yeah, so give us a thumbs up, a like, and feel free to subscribe, and that'll help these videos go even further and help even more people with their projects. Thanks very much, and please stay tuned for the, well, it's not really a maiden flight. This plane's done a lot of flying already, but it's going to be the maiden flight flying on the Matek F405 flight stabilizer. So thanks very much, and yeah, tune in for the flight video coming up soon. God bless.